Our passion didn't start with the mouth. It started with people, with the well-being of the profession, and if you're like me, maybe a little bit of your nerdiness in all things tech too. We all want to love what we do, but the truth is, burnout, people problems, and glass ceilings can keep us from doing what we set out to do. So let's get back to the heart of connection. Welcome to the Dental Handoff. This show is about passing you the knowledge, the habits, the systems, and the strategies to lead your teams, lean on the tech, and listen to your gut while you take care of teeth. And let's get honest, the overall health of our communities. Let's stop using the wrong end of the toothbrush, y'all. My name is Dr. Kelly Tanner. Oh, and uniquely, I'm a dental hygienist, too. You can consider me a guru in the dental and leadership industry. With over 3 decades of experience, my goal is to take you to the next level by empowering growth, perspective, and confidence. By identifying the gaps, recognizing the plaque, and extracting the truth with other experts in the field. I'll share their stories, empower you to own yours, and elevate your passion in the process. So have a seat in the chair, put on your bib, and let's get to work. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dental Handoff. Today, I have with me, my guest, the Dr. David Rice.
Hello there.
Dr. David Rice. Do you guys know Dr. David Rice? If you don't, you need to. So, David, thank you so much for being with us today and share your story. Enlighten us about all the good work that you're doing in the dental community, those who you're impacting, and just to give us some advice from all the lenses that you work through, the people that you are touching every day. So to kind of start us off, would you mind telling us, like, why did you become a dentist? Like, what was your why? And do you feel like in what you're doing every day, is that still true? Are you still serving your why?
Oh, man. I love it. So, sure. First of all, I think I like many got into dentistry, maybe a little bit confused as to whether I wanted to be on the dental side or the medical side. And, I knew I wanted to help people. I knew I wanted like some sort of healing process, kind of get people from a problem that they have today to a better place tomorrow. And I was really, really fortunate to have a couple cool dental people in my life. My general dentist was amazing, just someone who always took the time to make me feel important as a kid in his chair, and his whole team was that way. I thought that was awesome. And then, 1.5 years of orthodontics pre where we are today with clear aligners, and we're in such a better place today. But 6-ish years of orthodontics and spending time with that whole team, again, they just made a really significant impression upon me on how to make people feel special and solve a problem. And that was my path to dentistry, ironically. I walked in with no real background, and there I was, and thank gosh it was the perfect career.
That's awesome. So you went into it knowing that you wanted to change people's lives, impact people, and look at what you're doing now. So how many years did you practice dentistry? And then, tell us about like where you started, where you went, and like what you're doing today.
Sure. So we're going to rewind the clock. Some of you, I've been a dentist for 28 years. I can't believe it. Time has really flown. So I started off at Buffalo's dental school, graduated in 94. From there, I went on to a postgraduate program, which I still to this day, the whole thing, highly, highly, highly recommend. So I did a general practice residency at a hospital out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. There's some incredible programs out there. You have to seek the right one, of course. And then I moved back to Buffalo, I think sort of dragged, kicking and screaming. Family was from there, and worked for a couple different dental practices before I found my dental home that I purchased, brought in an associate week 1, crazy, I know. And Mark became a partner over the course of a few years, brought on another dentist, same path, brought on another dentist, same path. We did a startup in addition. We bought a few other practices in addition. And today I spend probably 80%, 90% of my time working with young dentists and dental students, and 20% of my time, 10% of my time, seeing patients in my practice, which is a perfect balance for me. I'm a teacher at heart. And I think as much as I love being with my team, that 10 to 20% time, I really, really love helping dental professionals sort of get where they want to go quickly, because it's an ocean of stuff and a lot of noise out there. And I feel like if you and I can be a small part of people's success path, then we've really done something cool.
Yeah, that's so good. And I love the fact that you still practice. And so you're impacting still what you're doing and you're honing your skills. And then in your practice too, you're able to impact and grow and then get that feedback, right? That feedback, that real live feedback on that. And then tell me a little bit, like, we've been in, I mean, we started in dentistry when we were 9. So, we're like 30, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But with there's some of us who are seasoned, who have the wisdom, who've been in this for a little bit. And then what's the difference in some of the things that some of the younger generation is experiencing that may be different than what we experienced?
Yeah. So I think sort of globally, no matter where you are, the debt load today is insane. It's, if you said the average dental student comes out with 400-ish thousand dollars of debt, I know the ADA and the AGD have statistics. They're good statistics, but they're skewed because there are parents who can write the check for their kids. And then there's the rest of the world. So I think their numbers tend to be lower just by average, because there's, a third of the people who bring that number down. But debt load is massive today. I think mindset is very different today. We're attracting a different student into dental school. And I think that probably is reflective on the hygiene side too. People who do want to help patients and bring amazing care, but also people who are very entrepreneurially spirited today versus when I graduated, where I didn't really have that mindset. I came in to be a great clinician, and I learned to be, a business person along the way. So those factors really bring out a totally different culture today.
With the mindset, are you mostly referring to the mindset of knowing that they're not only clinicians, but they are entrepreneurs, they're business owners? Is that what you mean by mindset?
I do. I think today's young dental professional is far more astute than I ever was. So they understand maybe the 360 degrees of win that they have to have. And when I came out of school, I was just thinking like, hey, I did great in school. I'm going to go be a great dentist now. And I didn't really have an understanding of the landscape. And I think today's young professional have a much better understanding. And thank goodness for that, because it's harder for them to be successful today than it was for me 28 years ago, for sure.
Yeah. Where do you think, because I know dental schools, I mean, many of them, I taught at Virginia Commonwealth University and their dental school. And I know that just speaking with other dentists who've graduated, they don't have a ton of course load and bandwidth to teach these courses on practice management. So from what you're hearing, where are they learning this?
Okay. Can I just be honest?
Do it.
They're sadly learning this from Facebook, which is the worst place in the world to learn it. So social media is very powerful, and I love it. It helps us reach everybody, and it's important. But I think what we have to be really, really cautious of as we kind of spend enough time in that social world is two things. One, who are we listening to? And do they have the experience, or do they, only have their own experience, which could be really positive, but can also be dangerous because there's not a lot of science. There's much more opinion. And the second side of that story is, I think human nature brings us to social media to seek affirmation, maybe instead of information. And what we really need is sound information backed by data. So I would say social media, unfortunately, is a big driver. It's been that way for a long time, right? You ask any of the big clinical learning institutions who their number one competitors, and they'll tell you YouTube, not each other. So this is not new. I think it's just exploded.
Yeah, because it's not like they have the ADA seal of approval on the back like our toothpaste does, right? And they can just say, "Oh, I know this is recommended because it's this."
Yeah.
How do they go about? I mean, and of course, we have so much available to us now through podcasts, through YouTube, anything visual, audio that we could possibly want to consume as that consumer, as at any part of our life. Is there a way for them to vet this process? Like, what would you recommend to that person who's looking for information? Like, how do they say, okay, this is the person I should listen to?
That's a really great question. And for me, I think there are a few pieces to that answer. First, I'd say is birds of a feather flock together, right? That's a life truism. So when
Mhm.
you start to see people sharing information, see who they hang around with. And if these people have a lot of education behind them, then they're probably somebody who you can say, gosh, they're bringing something to the table.
Mhm.
The second side of that is when you've sort of narrowed that pool to those folks is understand that your gut really knows a lot, right? The whole vagus nerve thing, and our gut knows before our brain knows. So when somebody resonates with you, stick with them, and instead of kind of trying to travel down 100 lanes, travel down 3, 4, or 5 lanes and dig deep with a smaller group of people. And then, third piece, I guess, is trust but verify. Do your homework.
Mhm.
Don't just take my word for it because I'm here sharing it with you. Go do your homework on me. Learn my background. Am I still practicing or am I not? As a clinician, if I'm giving you clinical advice and I'm not in there with patients, my opinion doesn't matter. Same thing on the business side, same thing on the leadership side. All those, make sure you're doing your homework.
Yeah, that's a really good point because I know even too that I'll get recommendations from people to say, okay, did you take that certification? Did you sign up for that training or something that was really powerful? And so I find too that if I hear it several times, especially if a person's name comes up for me like a couple times in a week, I will stop literally what I'm doing and I will try to find that person. I will email and say, apparently we need to meet because your name has come up like 2 or 3 times. What do you have? And of course I'll, research them because I just stop in my tracks because like you're saying,
Yeah,
it's more than a feeling,
it
right?
is.
And that I think there's a song behind that. More than a
I think there is. Oh my God, who's that? You're
it's
dating yourself.
I, I embrace it. It's okay.
I'm with you. I'm totally with you.
Now that song's going to be stuck in your head forever for
I
today.
know. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm hearing debt issues, is that new though? I mean, dentists were, I know that tuition's increasing, but is that something that's new?
So schools have thought on that. It's not new. 28 years ago, I graduated with $250,000 of debt. So, if you tag the whole inflation theory to it, what would my number be today? However, I think that number's scaling so quickly now. There are, I'm going to say, not to put labels on it, but there are traditional dental schools that have been around for, 150 years and they charge X. And then there's some newer, distinctly for profit schools and they charge X times 30%, which isn't to say that they're bad dental schools, but when you are assessing walking into dentistry as a profession, it is incumbent upon you, the applicant, to, again, do your homework. Don't get into school, come out 500 grand and then complain about it. That's your choice. So figure out what it's going to be and know what schools charge, up here, and know what cities will cost you more to live in. And at the end of the day, I'm here to tell you that whatever dental school you go to, or hygiene school, or assisting school, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. So if you bring forth a 10 out of 10 maximum effort every single day, I don't care where you go to dental school, you're going to get a great education. So, you don't have to choose one that costs you $150,000 a year because it's better. It's not.
Yeah, now that you're saying that, I think that traditional school of what I thought about, like the university settings, that
Yeah.
the things that we knew about 30 years ago, the schools that were there. I just
Yeah.
not going to dental school, going to dental hygiene school, it was kind of all the same playing field. But then as years go by, they do pop up, the for profits. And so I see your point there. And is there advice that you offer through what you're seeing that you provide to those students who are coming up against this? Like, what kind of advice could you give to them?
Yeah, I would tell you on the simplest level, because we could really dive deep in this, but on the really 30,000 foot view is live lean. I get it. I remember being a student and there's lots of stuff I wanted, and I wanted to sort of kind of reward myself for how hard I was working. So yes, should you go out and grab a bite to eat? Should you go do fun things? Should you take a vacation? You definitely should. Balance is very important. Your health and wellness is number one through this process. However, don't go out for a $200 dinner every week. Be reasonable. Don't take a $5,000 vacation, every year. Be reasonable. And certainly when you walk across the stage, don't get doctoritis and go out there and buy like the fabulous new car, new house, new boat, and all those things. If you live lean your first 1 to 3 years after school, like you did in school, I promise you, your student debt will be no match for your financial wellness, and you'll crush it.
That's really good advice, I think, no matter where you are, because I know that with me, with hygiene school, I was like, yes, I get to make X amount of dollars an hour, because
Yeah.
you're going from a minimum wage job, where you're in school, if you're still working. I had, 4 jobs while I was in school full time. And I sort of already spent the money before I even had it in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I can only imagine with dentists, with all the tech and all the the shiny objects, and then the value that you can provide with the new technology to
Sure.
make efficiencies. I'm sure that that's all it forms almost like an internal external conflict for people. So you're saying live lean. I mean, do what you just did in dental school, right? To get through it and to do the things that and to take care of yourself, and for the main things that you need to do. Enjoy yourself, take care of yourself and your health and your well-being and your balance. And I know that this is a deep topic too. So besides and you're talking about also the mindset, are there any other challenges that the dental students or hygiene students or anyone are coming out with that they're saying, I need help? Is there anything
Yeah.
else beyond those two?
Sure. So, insurance reimbursement today, if you're in an office that participates with insurance, they're reimbursing new practitioners at a much lower rate than they would reimburse you and I. So, we're contracted at a certain number, and then younger clinicians, unfortunately, are getting contracted at a much lower number for the same work. And it's just the insurance companies have kind of drawn a line in the sand and said, here's what we're willing to pay today. And it's very different from what they were willing to pay 5 years ago and 10 years ago, not in a positive direction. So as a young, clinician, you have to figure out how to be very effective with your time. And you mentioned technology. So, things I would do instead of, investing money in all the fun, I would invest money in me. You are your own best investment. So train up on all the things you can clinically, patient communication, leadership, team building. Those things matter. Invest in the right technologies, prioritize them so you can streamline your process. And maybe you can do a procedure in 20% less time with maintaining that like clinical excellence level. So those are the things that are happening, and just a little bit of, if I'm a young dentist today, how I'm going to lean in and try to fight it.
Yeah, that's good. And I like your point too. I think that we can overlook so many times the investment that we're putting into ourselves. We go outward for that to say, oh, there's this, and you forget that you have to learn how to create a workflow with your people and your team.
Yeah,
And then
it kind of matters.
there's all these people you got to talk to make it happen. And how are you going to bring that and get the buy-in, and not really buy-in, but to create that value to your team so they can see it, so they want to use it. And so you don't have these these places where you're running up against resistance with your team. And then two, how are you keeping your team?
Yes.
And that is so difficult. And especially with now where people are sort of just exchanging employees. I think it's starting to slow down a little bit right now, but it's, not the great resignation, I think, but it's a great shift in where people are going is what I'm understanding.
That's a really great point. If you said the number one issue in all of dentistry today, despite, age, is, hiring and keeping your team. Yeah. I mean, most statistics point to this thing isn't over for another 2 to 2.5 years. That's a real thing to understand. And two, roughly a third of team members are saying like, I don't know if I want to do this tomorrow. And maybe I don't know if I want to do it with you. So having strong leadership skills and building strong culture is important. Knowing what matters most to your team members is important. And then, kind of living in their world and bringing them with you to keep your team. Because there's some practices that do really, really well, and they are light years ahead of everyone else.
And why is that?
Their two biggest pain points today of team members, at least per data, is you're not paying me enough. Like it or not, that's where we are. And number two is my workplace experience is far below what I think it should be. And, if COVID uncovered anything, it's that we must address those two pain points for our team, or they will move on to somebody who will, whether that's within dentistry or outside of dentistry. So they're big.
So with reimbursements decreasing, here's the question.
Can I exit?
No, go. Exit stage, right? You're like, bah. With reimbursements decreasing and then salaries increasing, what is your advice to dentists on how to balance that?
Okay, so I'm going to go in a couple different directions on purpose because I know dentistry is very divided on this. If you asked me for my perfect recipe, and if you were to ever call me up on the phone and say, hey, can you help me? I would say, get out of network now. Now's your time. Patients understand more than ever value. They're paying more for everything today. So this is your opportunity to get out of network. But for all those of you who say like, easy to say, get out of network, then what I would say is if that's not your jam, then you have to bring technology into your practice to become an additional team member who never gets sick, who never talks back, who never asks you for more money. You have to bring in processes and tech. Sorry, team members, true story. And maybe not bring it in, but maximize what you already own. So everybody here probably has like a Ferrari in their dental software that they drive like a Volkswagen. But if you just learned everything that software was capable of, and you taught 1, 2, or 3 team members how to really use that software, you would find at least an extra hour in every day. That's a lot of time to be productive. And the other side of that is, if I'm you and I want to stay, in network, because that feels like too big of a thing, is start really researching in-office membership plans.
Yes.
That is your ticket to converting patients to your version of dental insurance. And they're very, very effective. There are some that you and I can literally write a check. And there are some that we can write a check and they'll teach us how to build our own plan. So, in years to come, we don't necessarily have to write that big check. We write just a little check. And that's both are options that work really, really well, depending on size of practice and how committed you are to doing the work.
Yeah, that's, and I love what you said too. And membership plans have become so popular because the patients get 100% of their money, just about. It's not a reimbursement. Like it's, it's just such a difference for the office where they can feel reassured that they're getting 100% of their money. So therefore it keeps the money in the practice, and it affects so many things. And I love too how you talked about the technology. That tech, like I talk a lot about iTero and different technologies. Those are your team members. They're helping you scale your business. No pun intended, but pun intended. They're helping you scale your business because they can help you grow it and become more efficient and help your workflow and take some of that burden off. And I'd love too what you said about you have the Ferrari of that practice management system, but you're making it a Volkswagen because you're not using all the good stuff out of it. So you can see the numbers. So you can see just your fruit that's already on the ground, like how your reports are looking, just patients who are just waiting to be called back by you that are just sitting right there.
So that's a really excellent point to add on to is, friends, if you're not measuring what's working in your practice, then it might feel good or feel really bad to you, but you don't actually know what's happening in your practice. So start using all the tools you already own, you've already paid for, and figure out what's working really well, do more of it. What's really not working so well, drop it or scale it back.
Yeah. And just say, okay, we're transitioning out of this.
Yes.
And here's our exit strategy, basically.
Yeah. I'm working with an amazing practice in New Orleans right now. And what we discovered together when we started measuring everything is there is a particular insurance that they've worked with that generates, I don't know, 10% of what they pull in
Hmm.
and costs them about 40% of their time. So we just sat back and said, like, okay, does that math make sense? And they're like, no, that math doesn't make any sense. I'm like, okay, so let's figure out a strategy. We're not going to just drop it. That would be silly, but let's figure out a strategy of how we remove ourselves from that. And here we are just 4 months later, and they haven't missed a beat on the revenue side because now they have so much more time to take care of the people that actually it makes sense to care for. And their profitability just skyrocketed, and it was just fear holding them back.
Yeah.
So think smart, think different.
Because I think that you feel like you're going to negatively impact that patient if you say, we can't continue to do business with this insurance, and here's why. And the patient's like, what? But the point that I always try to make too is if your customer service and your team service and how you make that patient feel, that experience, that value you create in the office is on point for that patient, they're not going to go anywhere else.
Yeah, they're not. They're
Yeah.
not. And if they're the random person who says, "Hey, I really need to try to go somewhere else," and you manage that, you have sound verbal skills, which I know you teach a ton of, where you with a smile, you let them go and invite them to always come back. When they go to a place where the bar is here instead of here, they're gonna call you back in a heartbeat.
You can almost sense it when an office isn't the same as what you're used to. It's like, okay, like
Yeah.
that, more than a feeling. So
So,
David, how do people find you? Like, how do they tell us about what you do day to day? I know we have a few minutes left, but
sure.
how do people find you and what are you doing?
So day to day, I work with dentists, students, and teams of all ages, but primarily if you're on the younger side, or maybe if you're me 28 years deep and you're still young at heart, I'm like, maybe I'm the mental age of still like a 13-year-old. So if you're me and you're older, but you feel younger, we help you get from where you are to where you really, really want to be. And that's on the business side. That's on, I think, just on the happiness factor. I think each of us measures success in a very different fashion. It's not my job to tell you what success is for you. It's just my job to help you get what you want out of life. And, as far as reaching out to me, there's a few ways. My email is david.rice@ignitedds.com. You are always welcome to email me. And if it's just easier for you to reach out on social media, you can, follow us at IgniteDDS, whether that's on Instagram or Facebook. I'm on both. I'm on Facebook as well as my name, David Rice. So, hunt me down. I'm fairly easy to find. Reach out in the way that helps you best. And I will get back to you within about 48 hours. Just depends if I'm on the road in front of a group or with patients.
So you travel quite a bit with what you do as well, and as well as seeing patients.
Yeah, it's fun. I love virtual, and virtual has saved us and is an incredible opportunity for us to connect more regularly than otherwise. But I do like getting person to person whenever I can too.
Oh, it's such a different experience. Well, we'll be sure to put Dr. Rice's information in the show notes. And Dr. Rice, it was such a pleasure to hear from you today and get that peek into what is happening, how things are different, how they're the same, but how you go about them and what you're seeing that helps people too in the dental office and the advice and what you give. And thank you for all that you're doing for the profession day to day, because it's about empowering people to know that they can figure it out. Everything is figure outable. It's that fear that's holding them back from that other side, like you said so many times.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being with us. If you all enjoyed today's episode, we would appreciate the favor of a 5-star review on Apple. Thank you. And we will see everyone next time. Thanks again, Dr. Rice.
Thanks for having me.